All right, let's talk about the rent, shall we? In the past 3 years, disputes over rent increases have tripled, directly linked to the rising cost of living. 2024, requests for rent adjustments at the Administrative Housing Tribunal surged to over 21,000. That's compared to about 5,000 annually between 2013 and 2019. So a real significant interest there. The abolition of lease assignments, which allow tenants to avoid rent hikes by transferring their leases, has worsened the situation. Manuel Johnson joins us now. He's a tenants' rights lawyer. Manuel, welcome to our studio.
Thank you for the invitation,
Elias. So what are you seeing now? And this is the heavy time of year, right? Right now, people who are renting across the island, out of the island as well, they're getting those notices from their landlords.
Yeah, for most leases that end in Quebec on June 30th, this is the high season because the landlords have to give their rent increase notices before March 31st. So a lot of people have gotten them and they're panicking, wondering what they're going to do with the substantial increases that they've received this year.
Would you say the increases that you're seeing, are you seeing a lot of cases of abusive increases?
Definitely because, again, it's not all landlords that are going to try to take advantage of the situation, but with the current supercharged rental market, overheated rental market, a lot of what we're going to call the speculators are taking advantage of that to even give higher rent increases than even the recommended rent increase. So, I've seen up to 30-40% rent increases asked by certain landlords.
What's the advice here? What are you telling our listeners if they get an increase that's clearly not in line with any recommendations, it's abusive? How do you handle it?
Well, it is. You have to look over the numbers, but to be able to do that, you have to get the information from the landlord. So the first step is to ask the landlord for their figures and even for the supporting documents that are going to support the increase. Trouble is, this year, and this is our system of rent fixation, is that each year that the rents go up, that means the recommended increase will be higher the next year. So this year, this is according to the regulation, there's a 6.9% increase for the landlord's net income. Okay, that goes far beyond inflation and goes far beyond what most of us have received in pay increases, right? But that's based on how much the rents went up last year. So we find ourselves in a inflationary spiral. Yeah. Which is fueled by real estate speculation.
No, and I can imagine, right? It's just how investments work, right? If you get, a 7% increase every year, that adds up over time. If it's happening to rents, larger increases every year, it's going to make the previous increases will make next year's increases even more important. Right. We were talking before, you mentioned something about there's a backlog of cases. So many people are fighting back that there's a backlog. What happens in a system where there's a tremendous backlog? What does that mean for tenants?
Yeah, this is the problem at the Administrative Housing Tribunal. It's the busiest tribunal in Quebec. And again, with the current housing crisis, that means that there's a lot more cases that are coming to this tribunal. So it's taking a long time to hear these cases. The difficulty for renters and certain owners as well is that the longer it goes on, the more uncertainty there is. And the tenant will have to pay the retroactive amount. So the tenant keeps paying the same amount. But, we have cases that have been dragging on since 2021, 2022, and each year there's a new increase.
Okay. So if you challenge, you keep your current rent, you're paying your current rent.
That's right.
Then let's say you lose. In one shot, you got to pay back everything from the year or 2 years if you're waiting for your case.
That's why it's very important to be well informed and to ask again for these numbers, for the documents, to take a reasoned, a well-informed decision. But again, people have their backs up against the wall. They're already paying high rents. They get a 10% increase. Their normal instinct is going to be to challenge that. Because you can't go down to the grocery store, right, and say, well, I want to contest the price of meat and vegetables and all that. It's the rent is the only area where you can actually contest the increase, but then you get involved in a long administrative process.
Because of that backlog and the long administrative process that you outlined, Are there some landlords at least that are willing to play ball and maybe willing to accept? Should everyone be trying to lower that increase because some landlords think it's
Sure.
not worth the hassle?
Yeah, it's better to try to negotiate if you can negotiate and look at the tile guidelines. If you can get something that's near the tile guidelines, I would say to people, take it.
Yeah.
Because also if there's that backlog, they have to pay the back rent, and you may even have to pay the fees at the Administrative Housing Tribunal. They're not enormous. It's about $90, but all that you have to pay extra if you've refused.
I have a question from our listeners asking where they can find the formula for the calculations of rate increases. Where do they get that?
Well, that's on the TAL website.
On the TAL website. Okay.
And also, I would recommend for people to go down to their local housing committee. They're overwhelmed now too, but they can help you do those calculations. Of course, we're always looking for clients, but actually we can't respond to all the demand. It's not always worth it to pay a lawyer to look over that. It's a mathematical calculation. You don't necessarily need a lawyer to look at that.
In the moment we have left, just for our listeners, what's the one piece of advice you want to leave with them if they're facing rent challenges?
Well, again, inform yourself on your rights. There's also another important element. There's a new regulation that makes the obligatory content for the rent increase. So the landlords have to offer you the 3 choices: refuse the increase and stay in your apartment, refuse the increase and leave, or accept the increase. Yeah. If those 3 choices aren't on the notice, you may have grounds for saying the notice is invalid and you'll have no rent increase this year. So keep in mind that.
So some landlords may exclude one of the options to pull a fast one.
Exactly. And in that case, you could maybe contest the validity of the notice and get away with no rent increase this year.
Great tip right there. Manuel Johnson, tenants' rights lawyer. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.